President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. opens his State of the Nation address with an unprecedented rebuke of his cousin, former House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Without explicitly mentioning China, President Marcos makes his lengthiest statement yet on national sovereignty during a SONA. President Marcos draws loud cheers during his SONA as he calls for the removal of systems loss charges from electricity bills. Energy Secretary Garin says the US-led initiative Pax Silica is too dangerous to plug into the Luzon energy grid. And P-pop group SB19 is Philippine tourism's newest ambassador. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. opens his State of the Nation address with an unprecedented rebuke of his cousin, former House Speaker Martin Romualdez.
At dumating na tayo sa punto na ayon sa Ombudsman ay malapit na ang paghain ng patong-patong na kaso laban sa dating Speaker. Hindi ako pangulo ng aking pamilya. Hindi ako pangulo ng aking kaibigan.
Meantime, Romualdez says in a statement he is ready to prove his innocence. The Office of the Ombudsman recently named the Leyte congressman as the central figure in the multi-billion peso flood control corruption scandal. The anti-graft body has been pursuing money laundering and plunder cases against him and said it is very close to filing the charges. Romualdez resigned as the House Speaker in September 2025 after being implicated in the budget mess. Without explicitly mentioning China, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. makes his lengthiest statement yet on national sovereignty in a State of the Nation address. Marcos points out what he calls a common threat to Filipinos' dignity and self-respect involving the West Philippine Sea. He reacts to China's recent AI-generated video that depicted the Philippines as a monkey and Chinese ships' use of water cannons on Philippine vessels.
Of late, our very humanity has been called into question. Let me remind our friends and our detractors, Filipinos are a noble, kind, gracious, and great race. We are not greedy, we are not racists, we are not liars. We are Filipinos, and we do not yield.
Marcos then highlights the 2016 arbitral award that affirmed the Philippines' sovereign rights to its exclusive economic zone in the South China Sea, largely the portion it calls the West Philippine Sea. He commends Filipino maritime frontliners such as Coast Guard and naval officers as well as fisherfolk who he says embody the award.
Mga kapwa kong Pilipino, sa ganitong mga banta sa ating seguridad, sa loob at sa labas ng bansa, tayo'y tumindig ng taas noo at magkapit-bisig. Dahil tayo man ay magkakaiba sa maraming bagay, iisa lang tayong lahi. Tayong lahat ay Pilipino, Pilipino sa diwa, Pilipino sa dugo. Sa mga pang-aalipusta, hindi tayo matitinag. Sa manlulupig, hindi tayo pasisiil.
Consumer and energy sector issues figure among the highlights of President Marcos' second-to-the-last State of the Nation address. Marcos draws loud cheers from the audience by calling for the removal of systems loss charges from electricity bills. He also calls for the amendment of the Electric Power Industry Reform Act or EPIRA, a law that has long been criticized as unfair to consumers.
Sa aking palagay, panahon na para tanggalin na natin ang systems loss na pinapasa sa consumer. We demand for the immediate amendment of the EPIRA and to prohibit charging systems loss against consumers, including the value-added tax thereon.
Marcos then calls for a revisit of nuclear energy, cutting income taxes of some sectors, and reforming education to match new technologies. He speaks favorably of the controversial Pax Silica, a US-led AI-centric technological hub planned for New Clark City in central Luzon.
The Pax Silica Industrial Hub will create an ecosystem that will have AI at its core. It will bring quality jobs to our people, accelerate our industrial competitiveness, and revitalize our economy.
Energy Secretary Garin says the US-led initiative Pax Silica is, quote, too dangerous to plug into the country's power grid. Pax Silica seeks to establish an over 1,600-hectare high-tech industrial hub in New Clark City, which could eventually require 3,000 megawatts. This is about 19% of Luzon's projected 2026 peak demand and nearly equivalent to the entire Visayas grid. Garin confirms Pax Silica cannot plug its full demand into the Luzon grid without exposing households and businesses to serious risk. Garin says if you put it on the grid and then suddenly this 3 gigawatt demand will be lost, the grid will just shut down. The DOE secretary adds, introducing a 3 gigawatt load tied to one industrial area could become a problem of grid stability. She says it's too dangerous for our usual consumers, so there are ways to do it, but the primary concern is that we don't destabilize the grid because that will affect other businesses and households. Garin suggests having an effective separate ecosystem with its own power, water, and supporting infrastructure for the initiative. The Philippine Tourism Department announces its partnership with P-pop boy group SB19, referring to them as one of the country's finest representatives of Filipino culture. With the sold-out tours the group has mounted over the years, its fans from overseas book flights to the Philippines just to watch concerts live. Tourism Secretary Dita Angara Matay says SB19 is giving people real reasons to visit the Philippines. That's the kind of reach we want to build on. They share the ambassadorship with fellow P-pop group Beanie. SB19's designation comes just before its historic 2026 Lollapalooza performance. The Dungka Hitmakers will be the first homegrown Filipino act to take the stage at the prestigious music festival on July 30 or early morning July 31 Manila time. And that's today's wrap. I'm JC Gotinga. Thank you for watching. Click the link below for the full story. For more updates, download the Rappler app.